Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All good Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we continue with Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, verse 32. And the chapter is entitled, The Punishment and Reward of Kali. We are in the discussion between how Maharaj Pariksit actually let Kali free, not only free, but banished him from his kingdom so that it will not continue to corrupt his kingdom. So we'll continue into the next verse, and the class will be given by Pariksit Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg. Without further delay, we will go right into the class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivadatari, Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Ivadadari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Inja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Inja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Ivadadari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Nitai Gura Chandra Nitai Gura Chandra Gura Hari Jaya Nitai Gura Chandra Nitai Gura Chandra Gura Hari Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladevi Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gura Nitai Jaya Gura Nitai Jaya Gura Nitai Jaya Gura Nitai Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Privaj Kacharya Stotara Satya Shishimaris Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Privaj Kacharya Stotara Satya Shishimaris Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय नवद्वीप धाम की जय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय गंगा माई की जय जमुना माई की जय तुलसी देवी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gaurang. Lord Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Panaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Swami Nityanamani. Namaste Krishna Panaya Prabhupada Siddhartmani. Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Vedana. Narayana Namaste Chanaron Chevam Narotamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tatojayam Gudirayat Nashta Prayeswa Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhavatu Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna Buddhis. So this morning's class, as was announced earlier, is Canto 1, Chapter 17, Text 32. Tvam Vatamanam Naradeva Deshu Anupravito Yam Adharma Puga Lavonitam Chauryam Anaryam Amko Jesta Chamayas Kalahascha Damba Tamvatamanam Naradeva Deshu Anupravitoyam Adharma Puga Lobonitam Chanyam Anariam Amko Jesta Chamaya Kalahascha Damba Tamvatamanam Naradeva Deshu Anupravito yam adharma puka Lavonitam chayam anariam amko Jesta chamaya kalahascha damba. Hare Krishna.
Tvam vartamanam naradeva desvil anupavrito yamadharma puga lobhonritam choryamanariamamho jista chamaya kalahascha damba. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Tvam vartamanam naradeva deheshva anupravruttayam dharma pogaha lobho nrutam chairyamanaryamoho jesta che maya kalahasya dambaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Tvam vartamanam naradevya dehe sava anupravratoyam adharma puga lobho nartam shauryam anarayam amaho jyeshtha cha maya kalahas cha dambaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? All right, word for word. Tvam, you. Vartamanam, while present. Nara Deva, a man god or a king. Deheshu, in the body. Anupravrita, taking place everywhere. I am all these. Adharma, irreligious principles. Uga, in the masses. Lobha, greed. Anitam, falsity. Charyam, robbery. Anaryam, incivility. Amha, treachery. Anritam, what did I do? Okay. Jeshta, misfortune. Cha, and Maya, cheating. Kalaha, quarrel. Cha, and Damba, vanity. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. If the personality of Kali, a religion, is allowed to act as a man god or an executive head, certainly irreligious principles like greed, falsehood, robbery, incivility, treachery, misfortune, cheating, quarrel, and vanity will abound. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The principles of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, as we have already discussed, may be followed by the follower of any faith. There is no need to turn from Hindu to Mohammedan to Christian or some other faith and thus become a renegade and not follow the principles of religion. The Bhagavatam religion urges following the principles of religion. The principles of religion are not the dogmas or regulative principles of a certain faith. Such regulative principles may be different in terms of the time and place concerned. One has to see whether the aims of religion have been achieved. Sticking to the dogmas and formulas without attaining the real principles is not good. A secular state may be impartial to any particular type of faith, but the state cannot be indifferent to the principles of religion as above mentioned. But in the age of Kali, executive heads of state will be indifferent to such religious principles, and therefore, under their patronage, the opponents of religious principles such as greed, falsehood, cheating, and pilfering will naturally follow. And so there will be no meaning to propaganda crying to stop corruption. Propaganda crying to stop corruption in the state. Oma Gina Chimudandesya, Gyana Gina Shilakaya. Chakshu Umritangina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Vitapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha. Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam. Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Scha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Panamami Hari Priye Vanchakapatru Vescha Kripa Sundbe Vachapatitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Shitarini. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gora Chishe Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himavi Rivacha Vishindaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So here's the translation again. If the personality of Kali, a religion, is allowed to act as a man god or an executive head, certainly irreligious principles like greed, falsehood, robbery, incivility, treachery, misfortune, cheating, quarrel, and vanity will abound. Hare Krishna. So this is Maharaj Pariksit explaining the situation in leadership. The personality of a religion, Kali, had tried to attack, actually not tried to, but he actually attacked the principles of religion in the shape of a bull. And now there have been conversations in earlier texts between Maharaj Pariksit, the cow, by the earth taking the shape of the cow, and religion, dharma, taking the shape of a bull. And now he's explaining to the personality of Kali, who had also dressed up like a king, even though he was not, and trying to bring a religion about. And Maharaj Pariksit was actually going to kill the personality of a religion. But he bowed before him and asked for protection. He surrendered himself. So now Maharaj Pariksit has decided not to kill him, but he's also explaining the situation. As a pious king, as a Raja Rishi, he is saying that if a religion is allowed to act or become prominent in society, then its principles, which are greed, falsehood, robbery, incivility, and incivility means rude or unsociable speech or behavior. That's a dictionary definition of that. If you're not being civil, you're not being a decent person. And an indecent person is a rude person or a person that uses, speech that's not allowed or that's not nice for human decent society in the mode of goodness. Treachery, misfortune, cheating, quarreling, and vanity. That would be prevalent. But now, if we look at today's society, these irreligious principles are all over the place, just like the text says. There is greed. People hoard things. People try to take from others. People are envious of others. Falsehood, which means lying and or manipulating others in a certain direction for one's own, to take advantage of other people unfairly. Robbery, stealing, incivility, which I've explained already, rude or unsociable speech or behavior. Treachery, misfortune. And of course, that misfortune will definitely happen because when people are doing things that are negative, then misfortune will also, beset people. And this happens at different levels. It can happen in the individual level, it can happen to a community, it can happen to a country, and it can happen to the planet. So all of these are living entities too, including the planets. They're also living entities. That's when the people from NASA, they went to space, they found that out. That, at the planetary level, it's like a community also. Yes. The planet operates like one living entity, just like we know ourselves as one living entity. But there are all kinds of other living entities living inside of us. We call them germs. They are also separate living entities, literally with souls and super soul being in them too. So misfortune would happen, cheating would happen, and the age of quarrel, Kali, Kaliga, the Iron Age, quarrel, they'll be there. Vanity. Vanity means a person who is excessively proud, or they admire their own appearance or their own achievements and so on. Vanity, I'm better than you type mentality. That's what's going to happen. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the principles of religion, austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness may be followed by anybody of any faith. It is not for Krishna conscious people only. It is not for Brahmins only. It is for anybody who believes in God. They can follow the principles: austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. So we don't have to change religions, go from one to another, and neglect the principles of religion. Srila Prabhupada says Bhagavatam urges that people follow the principles of religion, and they're not like dogmas or regulated principles of a particular faith. Which means all good people should live lives of austerity. They should be clean, they should be merciful, and they also should be truthful. These are the things that a person who is using properly this particular type of body, the human body, should be about if they want to increase their understanding of Krishna consciousness or even God consciousness, since Prabhupada is talking about different religions, different faiths, and so on. So, in any religion, are the people practicing these four basic pillars of religion? If they're not, there's no point being there. If the preachers don't talk about these kinds of things, then the people aren't going to grow with the understanding that actually life is about austerity, about cleanliness, about mercy, and about truthfulness. Within all of these four basic principles, in fact, there are other, it can be broken, each one can be broken down into different aspects and right down to what you do as a person to uphold these religious principles, the principles of religion. So we'll get into that a little later. But if we don't, as the Prabhupada is saying, if the heads of state are themselves not following the principles of religion, and as it said, whatever a big man does, the little man also follows, the people follow. Then, since the big man is doing things that are against religious principles, then the little person would do that. And as a matter of fact, before I came to this country, I saw it happen. Just so unfortunate. I was much younger then, and in my teens, high school, then I found out what the government people were doing. This is Ghana, in West Africa. And what had happened was that it became clear that the ministers, or what we call them in America, the secretaries of the different departments, they were actually embezzling funds. And some of them will be, caught and some Krishna would arrange for some incident to happen, and then the press talks about it, and we get to find out the picture and everything of this person who is a criminal taking money belonging to the state. And it got to the point where many people are practicing it, and therefore the little man said, well, I'll also take things, and therefore bribery started. Bribery started. And since there were so many different groups, as we call them tribes, groups in the country, then, oh, you're from this part, you're from this part, you're from this part. All right, I'm from the same part as you come from. And I'm the one that hires people, therefore I will hire you. So discrimination like that based on a person's ethnicity or the ethnicity of the person. So all of these began to rear their heads. And then sometimes you wonder how even a country can go on. And people started embezzling the funds belonging to the country rather than develop the country. So this is what happens when a person who is not godly, when they say man God, I mean the person who is godly in behavior is not put in charge. That's why Krishna allowed the battle of Kurukshetra to happen to clear many people who are kings, who are demonic. And then he made sure that a person who was a Raja Rishi, a devotee of the Lord, a pure devotee of Lord Maharaj Yudhishthira, got on the throne. This was from an original complaint by the earth that so many people, Bhumi Devi, complained that so many people who are demonic were running affairs of the earth, and something had to be done about it. And so Krishna came and changed things. And therefore, of course, when Krishna finished, there would have to be a pure devotee of the Lord running affairs, becoming an emperor. And that's what happened in the case of the Pandavas and Maharaj Yudhishthira, and after him, their grandson, Maharaj Pariksit, who we're talking about now. So there's very, 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 very important two things. Need for a person who is in a mode of goodness to run a country. And secondly, a person who understands the religious principles to run a country and abides by the religious principles himself to run a country. So the religious principles are austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. So austerity, and that is discussed in chapter 16 and chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 16, text 1 through 3, the different qualities of a devotee are listed. And austerity or tapasya is one of them. And Srila Prabhupada just says plainly, without tapasya or austerity, no human being can get liberation. So he put it out there. No tapasya, no liberation. Why? Well, we're going against the grain. The way people are living life, it's a certain, the overwhelming majority of people are going in a certain direction, unfortunate direction, but that's the direction they're going, the direction of sense gratification. And when a person decides to go the other way because their eyes are open and realize that they shouldn't go with negativity, cheating, and sense gratification and so on, those things that would keep us in this jail lifetime after lifetime. So they decide to go against that, which means what people are doing normally for sense gratification, they're going to do the opposite. Well, now, if you're going to go against the grain like that, then you have to put in effort mentally and sometimes physically in order to go against the grain like that. And that takes sacrifice or austerity. And so in chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita, in chapters, in sections or texts 5 and 6, Srila Prabhupada talks about some of the things that one has to do in this part of living, which involves austerity. So first of all, he deals with what's not austerity that is allowed in the scriptures. He said there are some people who go through austerity and penance, which are not mentioned in the scriptures. Some people may fast, deny food for themselves, food and water, for some material ulterior purpose, such as to promote some political issue. That is not mentioned in the scriptural directions. If we're going to fast as an austerity, we have to fast for spiritual advancement, not for some social purpose, not for some political end. And in fact, Bhagavad Gita says that people who do such austerities are actually demoniac. And sometimes when you see the word demoniac, you think, oh, big demons like Hiranyakashipu and Ravan and those who did huge things on a demonic level, they're the ones being referred to. No. Srila Prabhupada simply broke it down like this. Sir, and he kind of dramatized it a little bit. Sir, do you believe in God? No, you're a demon. That's how he ended it. He says, you believe in God? No, you're a demon. So people who are taking the austerities for material reasons are demonic, because their acts against what they're doing is against the scriptural injunctions, what the scripture says to do. And it's demoniac people that do the opposite of what scriptural injunctions say to do. Therefore, people who take those kind of austerities like fasting for other than spiritual advancement or spiritual purposes, they are demoniac. They act out of pride, they act out of a false ego, they act out of lust, they act out of some material cause for material enjoyment. Now, austerity, as explained in chapter 17 of the Bhagavad Gita, is broken down into 3 sections: austerity of the body, austerity of speech, and austerity of the mind. So those are the three, mind, body, and speech. So how about the austerity of the body? Well, that's in chapter 17, text 14. Austerity of the body consists in worshiping the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, or for us, the Vaishnavas, the spiritual master, and also paying respect to father and mother, and also cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and nonviolence. So this is all part of austerity of the body. We worship the Supreme Lord. We use our bodies to worship the Supreme Lord. We also worship the spiritual master as representative of Krishna. We give respects to father and mother. It's through them that we came to this world as a human being. We have to keep clean, because that's the body. Cleanliness is there. Simplicity is important. Keep life simple, as we say, simple living and high thinking. Simple living and spiritual thinking. Celibacy and nonviolence. Don't worry other living entities unnecessarily. So the austerities, these austerities have to be practiced by all devotees. So those who are aware of Vedic knowledge, like we always talk about, they should be given proper respect. Devotees should respect other devotees. Now, austerity of speech. Austerity of speech, that's in text 15 of chapter 17. You have to speak words that are truthful. So we have to fight the tendency to deceive or to manipulate or to flat out just lie. The words should be truthful, not only truthful, they shouldn't be raw, they should be pleasing. And they should also be beneficial. So austerity of speech says we have to say things that are truthful. We have to say it in a pleasing way, using words that are nice, beneficial for the person that we're speaking to, would not agitate that person or any other person. And also when we recite the Vedic literature, that is also austerity of speech. So we should never speak in such a way to agitate the minds of others. So we've talked about austerity of the body and austerity of speech, now austerity of the mind. Some of these qualities, they intersect or they merge, they're the same. There's commonality in them. So in text 16 of chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita, satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. So austerities of the mind means we're satisfied, we are running our lives based on what we need materially and no more. Whenever we want anything more materially, then there has to be something behind it. The reason behind it has to be spiritual. The reason behind it has to be spiritual. Then we go for some extra material things because we're going to use it for a spiritual purpose. Other than that, we should be satisfied with what we have. Keep life simple, not complicated. Material life now, especially in so-called advanced countries, they're always trying to come up with gadgets that are more complicated than the other one. And it gets to a point where somebody has to draw the line and say, all right, I'll go only with this far. Whatever is useful for us, yes, we will do. But other than that, it gets to be too much. It gets to be too much. So you keep life simple like that. Gravity, a person is grave, and a person is one who can be, as they say, be still. They say, the Christians say, be still and hear from the Lord. That's gravity. be still and begin to think of spirituality, take stock of how your life is going. Self-control. Self-control comes from not being offensive and also obeying the regulated principles. No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit sex. Self-control. Purification of one's existence has to do with cleanliness and also following the way Vaishnavas are supposed to live their lives, involving the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and hearing, because when we hear from the scriptures and we hear it explained, then we begin to, so this is how it is, and I can understand this and so on. So we have to do constant hearing. And then we live life according to what the Vaishnava is supposed to be. Those are austerities of the mind. We see that because the overwhelming percentage of the population are not doing that. They are into sense gratification, how to make more money, and on and on and on and on. How to get people to buy things that they don't really need. Advertisements, 90% of the advertisements, if not more, are on products that people don't need. And in fact, it became very clear to many stores that when the pandemic, COVID-19 hit, people for the first time in a long time, went to stores to buy things that they needed. They were buying food, they were buying medicine. They were not buying TVs. We went to that side, and I was in Sam's Club in particular. Everybody is on the way the store is set. The one half of the stores for all of these other things that people just do just for fun. Printers, computer printers, TVs, you name it. Nobody was there except the salespeople that they're supposed to work, and nobody was there. And then on the other end is where the food and the medicine is, the other half. That's where everybody was, buying stuff to keep. So see, it took a pandemic, it took a serious situation where people would say, you gotta live on what you need. And all of these things were, other things were the extras. And not to mention, of course, they had a big sale. All the TVs were like half price, and there was still nobody was buying them because people didn't need it. They became for the first time, a little bit, they realized about simplicity. But actually, it was obviously a situation that was tense. That's why people behaved that way. So these austerities of the mind, austerities of the body, austerity of speech, the persons who follow those are those in the mode of goodness, austerities in goodness. But there are people who also do austerities like fasting, performing out of pride or gaining respect or gaining honor or popularity. That's austerity in the mode of passion. That's not stable, that's not permanent. And then some people perform austerity out of foolishness, torturing themselves or destroying or injuring others. That's austerity in the mode of ignorance. And that will take people to the hellish planets. Foolish penances taken by demons like Hiranyakashipu, who wanted power, this power to be able to become immortal and also kill the demigods. That's austerity. And he went through a lot of austerity, denying himself food and water and standing on one leg and all of that for a long time, trying to appeal to Lord Brahma. Now, a devotee, so we talked about austerity. Now, cleanliness, suchi. Cleanliness means we have to be clean inside and outside. Devotee's mind, devotee's heart, devotee's intelligence, body, the clothes, where they live, where they work, where they worship, personal and business dealings, all should be clean. We'll say it again. The mind should be clean, the heart should be clean, the intelligence should be clean, the body should be cleansed, the clothes we use should be clean, where we live should be clean, where we work should be clean, and where we worship And when we deal with personal dealings and business dealings, they all should be clean, which means it has to be truthful. External cleanliness is there, but it has to be done in connection with Krishna. And internal cleanliness is done by chanting the holy name of the Lord and hearing the pastimes of the Lord, the glorifications of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mercy, where there's mercy from the Lord and then the mercy of the devotees. The mercy of the Lord in Bhagavatam, Canto 1, this chapter 17, text 24. So Srila Prabhupada says in the section of the purport that the Lord descends out of his causeless mercy only to reclaim the fallen souls who are captivated by the illusory energy. This life is illusory. And the way to get out is been explained in Kali Yuga, the chanting the holy name of the Lord, the hearing of the Lord's pastimes, the hearing of what we should do and not do, and taking that into account when we live our lives. We hear and then we apply. Just like in yesterday in the Dear Krishna Prabhu was giving the class, and he mentioned that. We hear, but we hear to apply. So the problem is we are actually eternal servitors of the Lord. But when we forget this position and think of enjoying the material world, then factually we are in illusion, because we think that the material world is going to give us satisfaction, but it doesn't. So the Lord descends to eradicate this false sense of enjoyment and thus reclaim conditioned souls back to Godhead. That is the all-merciful nature of the Lord for the suffering, the falling souls. Now, sometimes people pray. A suffering person, if it's pious at all, they will pray to the Lord for recovery from the suffering. But many people, what they do is, as soon as the recovery is over, in most cases, that suffering man, they don't care about keeping any connection with the Lord. Oh, I've got what I want. But the mercy of the Lord is still there for that person, but they are reluctant to receive it. A pure devotee is always getting the mercy of the Lord, but a mixed devotee sometimes remembers the Lord when they are in problems, they have problems, and they pray, and then when that's over, okay, the Lord is a tool that I use. I go and use it when I need it, and I don't need it, I put it aside. So that they have that kind of mentality. So those who are completely against the service of the Lord, don't serve the Lord at all, they are in abject darkness. And those who ask for the Lord's favor only in the time of necessity, they are just receiving the partially the mercy of the Lord. And those who are 100% engaged in serving the Lord, they receive the full mercy of the Lord. So the Lord is all merciful, but it depends on how the Lord, the individual wants to approach the Lord. What about mercy from the point of view of a devotee? So we may think, oh, well, Lord Chaitanya, he's God, he's the Prabhupada, he's a pure devotee, and there's a special devotee for this world. They are merciful, but how can I be merciful? The answer is very simple. We serve the great soul. When we serve the great soul, then we can act mercifully on his order. So Srila Prabhupada is merciful, and he says, do things this way. Our spiritual masters are merciful. They tell us, do things this way. When we do that, then we are like extensions of the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So we can distribute Krishna consciousness. That is mercy. Srila Prabhupada says, distribute my books. He wrote the books. It's been printed. So when we distribute the books, then we are merciful to the people at large, because they get to read it and they get to find out, oh, I'm in jail, I have to get out, this is how you get out, and so on, all that. Just like the Rath Yatra, we had this past Rath Yatra. The Rath Yatra saved somebody's life. They were going to take their lives, but because the Buddhists came out, the Lord Jagannath, he got curious about it, asked about it, and She had a change of mind, and now she's trying to practice Krishna consciousness. Like that. This is the message of the devotees. Following what the spiritual master has said to do. Truthfulness. Speak truth at all times. Austerity of the mind. Speak truth at all times. Speak in a very palatable way. So we discussed that earlier. Truthfulness is important. The great thing about truthfulness as opposed to lying is that you can always repeat the same thing to the same person when they ask you that question. You can repeat the same thing if you're being truthful. You don't have to think, oh, if you lied, and then, or if I lied, then what did I say about this situation to this person? I wouldn't try to remember that, because if I say something different, they're going to realize that I lied. But to a truthful person does not have to go through that. You say the same thing over and over and over again. So it's obviously a lot less work on the mind to have to be truthful. And also, it actually increases a person's reliability when they are truthful. So the principles of religion. They are to be followed by everyone. It's not for devotees only. And in any system of religion that does not follow these austerities, then they are not a religion to take seriously. Person has to be austere and clean and merciful and also truthful. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much for going through each of the 4 legs of religion. I was when you started the class, I didn't know if you're going to do that. So I really appreciate you going through, giving us a gist and a summary or recap of the 4 legs of religion. So thank you so much. Would like to ask thank you. Would like to ask devotees if you have any questions, any comments, any clarification, any doubts. Please do raise your hand, or you can jump right in, or you can put a post in the chat and I'll be happy to read it for you. And I do have a question, and that is in some in the middle of your class, you're mentioning, you made the statement that how we should try to be satisfied with what we have. And in this age of Kali, it's really, really a big challenge. Young and old, not just the young and old, because we are bombarded with so much of distractions that seemingly will make our life easier or simpler. So how can we really develop that understanding that it's not going to make it easier, and we should, if anything, is going to make it more complicated? And how can we be satisfied without what we thought is going to make it easier?
Hang around devotees who are advanced, because they understand that simplicity. This is a question that you ask, really winds up to be, or it's connected with having to be simple. We need to understand that this world is not a place for ourselves. It's not our home. If we travel, we go somewhere, do we go buy a whole lot of things to try to stay at that place? We may buy things to go use for something else back home, but do we buy so many things for that place? No. Well, same thing here. This is not our home. So why should we buy so many things for here? We're going to leave. And the thing about it is that we can't even take those things with us when we leave our bodies. Therefore, it makes sense that those things that we require to take care of the body are the ones that we should give priority to. But yes, it is advertisements. Advertisements are all over the place trying to get us to get some things. Ignore them. Ignore them. If it is difficult for you, I mean, sometimes when I'm watching YouTube or whatever, and an advertisement comes on, usually I'll just go for the the speaker icon and hit it and mute it so I don't hear anything that they're talking about. And then just turn my head away from the screen so that I don't see what they're talking about. And I just look at the place where the seconds are counting down. Where I say, oh, it's down to 1 second. All right, then I just go back to the audio again, because now it's going to change. It will keep going on and on and on and on. And it sometimes can even be annoying. In fact, you listen to something that's so important about Krishna, but it's on YouTube, and in the middle of it comes this advertisement that has nothing to do with your life. You just interrupt it and put it there. It gets to your skin, but this is Kali Yuga life now. People just simply wanting to take things from you and advertising, and so in that way. So it's difficult, but there are some I said some practical things that we can't stop the advertisements and the distractions, getting you to get things that are not needed. But fight back that way. We not listen to them. Then hopefully that would help. Unfortunately, this is the life now. But when we keep chanting, that's another thing. When we keep chanting and chanting and chanting and chanting all of the time, then we get less attached to those other material things too, and that would also help us to lead a simple life. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the main point that you mentioned is association with advanced devotees, senior devotees, who've gone through that stage of life and understand the importance and potency of simplicity. Thank you. Any other questions from devotees? I know we've just reached 9 o'clock, but if there are questions, we'll be happy to take it. Any other comments, any reflections, any thoughts about how to really follow the principles of religion: austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness?
You don't have a question. I have one more comment to make about austerity, but
yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So devotees, Vaishnavas, are supposed to chant our japa. So the Prabhupada has given us mercy by saying minimum of 16 rounds, down from 64. That's austerity. That's mercy from a spiritual master. Now, we've also heard, if you've listened to enough lectures, somebody's probably told you, early morning, Brahma Muhurta time is a good time to chant. Yes, there are metaphysical reasons, there are spiritual reasons, there are physical, regular reasons to have that. But then many of us, we live the type of lifestyle sometimes, and our work requirements and so on. And so we have that difficulty sometimes in chanting. It is necessary to chant in the morning. It is a very good time to chant in the morning. Dr. Tanya said there's no hard and fast rules. True enough. Chant at any time. But the morning one is most effective. You put Krishna first in your life. You put him first, he put you first. He gives more protection. So it boils down to this. It's not that getting up early in the morning and chanting is difficult. It's just that, have we had enough hours of sleep before we get up? But we'll get to you in a question. I just want to put this point in there. It's not difficult. One of our sannyasis, Hirananda Maharaj, pointed out that when a person wants to chant in the morning, they can and still get enough rest in the evening. And all they have to do is, I know when I have to get up to go to work, at least to put in an hour of chanting before I go, that would be very good. If you can finish all the 16 rounds, so much better. So you basically say, all right, if I have to start preparing for work at such and such a time and leave home so I get to work at the time that I'm required to, so when do I start getting ready for work? And then you give yourself, you subtract another hour from that time, or maybe 2 hours if you can. And that gives you a sense of when you should start chanting. Now, So say you got to start work preparing yourself at 6 o'clock so that you work at 7. It's just, some numbers. And you want to chant, you have to chant in the morning. Then you have to start chanting around 5 or maybe 4:30. So I said, oh, that's too early for me. Not really. How many hours do you sleep? You say, oh, if I sleep 6 hours, I'm satisfied. Well, now if you have to wake up at 4:30 in order to get that much time of round scene and then prepare yourself to go to work, you just basically give yourself that time. If 6 hours and 4:30 is when I have to get up, then it means 10:30 is when I go to sleep. You do the subtraction to tell you when you go to sleep, and make sure that you do that. It takes you a half hour to really fall asleep, and then go to bed at 10. So that at 10:30 you're sleeping, and at 4:30 you can have your alarm wake you up. But at the time you wake up, you have done 6 hours, the minimum that you want to chant. Now, if yours is 7 hours, well, then do it an hour earlier. Go to bed at 9, and by 9:30, if you're sleeping, then 9:30 to 4:30 is 7 hours. Now you got that time, 7 hours, now you're awake, but you've got enough rest. And now you have that time to take a shower and chant and still be able to prepare to go to work. So it's not as difficult as we think. It's just that many of us stay up too late, and then we only have 3-4 hours to sleep and get up at Brahma Muhurta time. So I can't do that. My body is so tired. But it's actually going to sleep at the appropriate time to get enough rest, and then wake up during the Brahma Muhurta time to do your rounds and then prepare to go to work. That's what actually works. So I just wanted to throw that in. Hare Krishna.
Dr. Brett, please go ahead with your question, Prabhu. And so nice to see you, hear from you, actually.
Hare Krishna.
Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Sept obeisances of Lord Shri Prabhupada. Yeah.
You are unmuted, Brett. Brett, unmute yourself.
Hare
There you
Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks.
Obeisances, all glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Nice to
glory to the
see
Prabhupada.
you. Haribol.
So wonderful class. So many wonderful points we could comment on. Especially just the translation talking about worshippers of Kali. And the point you just made, Prabhuji, about lethargy. Vishnuvari Chakravarti Thakur talks about how lethargy is the main impediment to our Krishna consciousness, to more Krishna. Goswami gives a wonderful lecture on that, but thank you for that. But I had a question. We were talking at the end of Prabhupada's purport on propaganda, and you were giving points on, leadership in this age of Kali. And I was thinking about a class Maharaj gave a few weeks ago, and we were just talking about how, the times are now, and Maharaj was discussing, how in today's society, we report on big data, and even that is, we're ill-informed. We don't really know what's going on in the world. So probably my question is, with all this propaganda, in our face, even if it has like good intention, we see it has consequences. Like in the last few years, we've seen a spike in reports on hate crimes, and with the hate crimes, that counteracts with these hate groups acting out even more. And so we see the propaganda that's on the positive front of it is more bodily focused. So how do we in today's age of Kali, going out, as you say, book distribution is where we should be. And I'm looking into a lot more service right now, and myself trying out. And so I'm thinking of this, how do we preach to today's youth, who, as Mataji even said, are so, connected. So, as you said, the answer is they need to stay connected to senior devotees, but they have, these opinions on the bodily front, these people out in the age of Kali, and they see that as a good thing, but we see it can be counterintuitive. So how, when we're going out book distributing today, how do we lightly push our propaganda of, that first lesson we learned in the Bhagavad Gita?
So that's a very good question. And you mentioned, especially when you're going out book distributing books. Srila Prabhupada has said this. When a person takes a book, even if they don't read it, that is the first and most important step. The book has come to their possession. And the Lord will, at some point, help that person to open the book to read it, or even if they leave it somewhere, someone else may come across it, read it, and get benefit from it. So that's the power of book distribution. That is one of it. Now, what do you say to the person? Well, that many ways can be, we can use even the material ways of approaching a person. Salespeople are very, very good at that. They will size you up and say in the first few seconds, something that is interesting or something that matters to that particular person. And that is always the opening statement that you make to that person. So if that person is a person with some family members, or they have some children with them, you can make a very positive comment about the child, because the parent loves the child, and that way the parent would be, they will see that as a complimentary suggestion or complimentary statement, and they may be open to you, and then you begin to talk a little bit about what you're doing. And so the thing is to get the person open to hearing by sizing up the person and then coming up with a statement that the person will be like, or even funny. I have a god brother, Shingatete Prabhu. I went to book distribution with him door to door in Harrisburg. And he was literally knocking on people's doors. It's a nice neighborhood. And now he's black-bodied, I'm black-bodied. And we're mostly in the neighborhood that mostly people were there with Caucasian people living. And if a woman opened the door, he had a very nice, respectful way of, greeting and then beginning to talk about why he was there. And I was surprised at how many people invited us in. But if you see like a middle-aged man open the door and then you looked at us, then he will go into an act, literally. He would take a few steps back and put his hand and says, don't shoot. And then the man will start laughing. Okay. I'm not going to shoot you. So you got him laughing already. So of course, he's still wondering why you're there. But because you put him in a mood of, a funny kind of jovial kind of mood, then he can open up, and many people never turned us down. If they didn't let us in, at least they took the book. So it's all a question of being able to size up the person that you meet in the first few seconds, and then say something that is interesting or funny, like that. Yeah, like that. So, and this is how you break into. And this is not for young people, any older people, any age people, like that. Hare Krishna. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you, Hoji. I mean, it's like you said earlier about living simply. Like, it starts within our small community, with every town and village and every small conversation. It boils down to, we can't expect to, propagate huge when we're out just book distributing. It's just an honest conversation and, sharing. But
yeah. Actually, I remember another incident too. If I could just add it. This was a family, and they had some little children with them. So we had lollipops, and it was going to give the boy a lollipop. The parents said, no, we can't have a lollipop. So I looked and said, oh, sorry, your lollipop visa has expired. Well, the parent just cracked up, started laughing. We turned to, you have an expiration on your, so he started laughing. See, now the parents started laughing. Okay, the boy may not have understood what that meant, but the parents started laughing. So then now I can go to the parent, because the parent sees me as a funny person. But then I have a reason I'm there. Now I can talk to the parents like that, So little things. You can ask other book distributors how sometimes, the people like jokes, because they are tense so much. But if you can crack something simple in the first few seconds, then usually they open up to you, and then just kind of relaxed, and and then you can talk about yoga. So many people know yoga, but they know hatha yoga. And then you tell them that the highest is actually, there's different types of yoga, and the highest is actually bhakti yoga. And that's presented in this particular book. Now you have a chance to talk about. Or if they know about the soul, you say, okay, well, the soul is the same thing as the spirit. And here's a book that talks about the science of the spirit, the science of the soul. Then you have plenty of opportunity at that point. Self-realization is a good one, and other books too. Yeah. So, Shiva Prabhupada has written so many small books that get to the point. Hare Krishna. Anyway.
Thank you.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Very nice question, Bhakti. But as well as you always
Mhm.
ask very, very nice questions. Thank you so much. And we thank all the devotees for joining us. Thank you for such a wonderful class. And we hope that we all have taken at least one takeaway from the class. As I was remembering a comment that the Krishna Prabhu said in his class last night in our temple, that whenever we hear a class, we should have at least two, I think is what he said, at least two takeaways that we can meditate on and think about and to apply the implementation part, which is out of the three hearing, he said, the third one was implementation, to apply and implement. So I hope that we have taken at least one to two takeaways to implement in our Krishna conscious life. And we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning. Until then, Vanchakraptibhyascha, Kritisindhavebhya, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful day, devotees. Hari Hari Bo.
Hare Krishna. Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai.